Good morning, everyone. Mark Cabrera here from Samson Properties. Today, we're going to be having a seminar on habits and discipline. And these are the two areas that we always could work on overall in general. So it makes a huge difference in how we're going to do the process from step-by-step process. I'll give you an idea exactly some things to think about, some of those things that can help you in the future. So hopefully this would be a very beneficial seminar for you guys, and welcome to Samson if you're new to the business. Well, first of all, let me talk to you about the subject of the definition of a habit. So we're talking about habits and discipline here. So, I looked up what is the definition of a habit. It's a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. There's a lot of habits that we have. We have good ones, we have bad ones, and when we define what a good one is, it goes towards our particular objective, what we're trying to accomplish, whatever plans we have. One of the things I always advocate for is before you get into this business, know what you want, just like anything else. So if you don't know what you want, you'll never get what you want from the business. So just like anything else in life, the very most important part is getting a definition of what you want. So that's where the mission statement comes from. I don't know if you guys ever done any mission statement right now, but some of you guys probably have not. But that's one of the things that I would actually recommend is for you to have a mission statement. Mainly because as days go by, week goes by, months go by, you will have moments in this business where you don't like the business. There's going to be moments of ups and downs. See, logically, everything can flow the direction you want, but emotionally does not always follow the logic. So this is the reason why it's very important for you to have a focus of what you're trying to accomplish, a mission of what you're trying to get to, and basically what it is you break down that big elephant of a mission. The bigger your goal is, and the stronger your mission is in terms of creating the drive for yourself, the closer you get to your goals. So if you guys have not done a mission statement, that's one of the things I would actually advocate for. And then we're going to be discussing habits and discipline towards going after your goals and using your mission statement to keep you going. So this is something that I would recommend because at times we're going to run into situations where we get distracted and things like that. So definition of a habit: a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. You're going to have habits out there, and like I told you before, the good habits are the one that goes towards our goal or our mission or what we're trying to accomplish. The bad habits are the ones that distract us from it. So as simple as I give you an idea what it looks like, if you have a habit of looking into your Facebook and making an excuse of marketing, and you spend hours on Facebook looking at other people's posts, it won't get you anywhere in the business, because at the end of the day, the amount of time that we have is already taken up for the 8 hours of sleep, which is part of our habits as human beings. And then we have at least 1 to 2 hours or even 3 hours of eating that we're going to spend. So your 11 hours is already taken up out of your 24. And then you have your work that you're doing. So if you're full-time in this real estate business, great. You have all the rest of that time to do. But you also have family to take care of, friends that to keep in touch with. So all those things require a certain habit that you build that will get you to where you need to go. And when I'm saying that is, one of the key elements in our business is not enough prospecting. That prospecting, to me, is your life source. It's your heart of your business. It's the one, actually the heart of your business is the database, and then the blood that actually runs through it, through your veins basically, is prospecting. So imagine if you didn't have any blood that goes through your heart, you're dead. That's essentially what you're going to be in this business if you don't prospect. So prospecting, I consider like brushing your teeth in our business. So to maintain your oral hygiene, right? Well, to maintain your business, the number one thing that you have is prospecting. Most people in this business do not spend at least 2 hours of prospecting every day. If you just spend 2 hours every single day, not even 7 days a week, even 5 days a week, okay, that's not even 10 hours in a week. Am I right? 10 hours? Yeah. It's not even 10 hours in a week. 10 hours in a week, right? People don't do it. And I can guarantee you, if you really ask yourself, do you do 2 hours of prospecting every day? What I'm talking about prospecting is the most fastest way to reach people in our business that's most effective is a phone call. Okay? I don't care about all this technology that you guys have out there. The point is, if you look at your habit, you have a habit of being able to talk to people. As much as COVID actually kind of slowed us down on that part, we still have that same mentality. If someone calls you, you pick up your phone, you have that conversation, you build that relationship. Whether that person is going to be buying a house or will never buy a house, but the difference is that person is a walking billboard for you. So the habit of prospecting should be the number one habit you have if you were to succeed in this business. And I can tell you right now, 10 hours a week of prospecting is a lot in our business. That's actually 40 hours in a month. Hopefully I'm doing my math right. 40 hours in a month, right? So if you're looking at how many months we have in a year, it's 12 months. Look at the number of hours, and each phone call, okay, if you average it out, will take between 3 and 5 minutes. And I'm being generous about that, right? 3 and 5 minutes. But then if you look at it from what you gain out of that phone call, you actually gain a potential walking billboard. When I say walking billboard, if you know how to teach the people that you know already how to market you, it's so much easier in this business. Every week you get leads. I get about between 2 to 4 leads a week easily in this business. And I'm right now I'm actually on a slow mode because I'm taking some little nice break right now because I don't own a brokerage anymore. I actually moved to Samson because of that, because I promised myself I'll never own a brokerage again. I would rather actually do this kind of things that we're doing, which is training, development, helping agents actually grow, and also being able to do a lot of sales. So this is something that makes a huge difference in terms of what you want in your life. This is the next phase of my life that I actually enjoy. But more importantly, your habit of prospecting should be the number one habit that you would have. So it's exactly what it is. It's hard to give up once you start getting into it, but you got to get into it. So even if you get into it on a slower pace, 2 hours actually to me, to some people, I'm pretty sure is a lot. But if you really think about it, if you have a full-time job, that's 40 hours. That's not even a quarter of your work for the week. But this part of the business is what grows your business 10 times, tenfolds. The difference between a person that's actually selling one house and a person that's selling 6 to 10 houses a month is prospecting. And when we're starting in this business, a lot of the times we don't want to do prospecting because it's uncomfortable. Anything that is uncomfortable, like flossing your teeth when you haven't flossed for a long time, is uncomfortable. But apparently it's healthy for you, so I actually floss because of that reason. But in the beginning, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so painful. But once you actually start getting to it and you do it more, and same thing with exercising. That's actually another habit that we could pick up on a regular basis. What I try to do every morning is get into the habit of doing 50 push-ups, and that's it. I get up, do 50 push-ups, and then move on my day. But in the beginning, when you haven't done any push-ups for a long time, it's the same thing. So it's a built-out process on prospecting. And I was just mentoring, I was actually coaching one agent recently, and he actually started 3 years ago, and his business is starting to grow. But then he felt like he needed a coach, so I started coaching him. Now, first thing I told him, I said, how many calls do you have on your, the guy is very organized. He's got everything. I got him started with the mission statement, but then what's interesting about it, he told me, I make 10 calls a day. And so how much you trying to reach? I was like, I'm trying to make at least $250,000 a year. I was like, well, I'm looking at your numbers at 10 calls a day. It's not going to be enough. I need you to actually start doing 25 calls a day. And he's like, oh my gosh, 25 calls a day, how am I going to do that? I'm like, what database are you working with? So I started breaking down the database. And it turns out he actually does some type of personal training, and he's got like over 700 people in that database. I was like, whoa, that's wonderful. Let's start working on that. And so we created a special script for that. And then on a daily basis, from February when he joined me till now, he's been doing 25 calls every day. 25 calls, not even 2 hours, guys. Or maybe it is. But remember, voicemail counts. So when you leave a voicemail, it's only 10 seconds of your time and you move on to the next call. So 25 calls is not a lot. But what happened to his business today? I mean, you can talk to him yourself. He's actually grown his business from one transaction every 2-3 months to right now consistently doing between 1 and 2 transactions every month. He's got four transactions on the pipe right now, and every single month he's actually building up. And now when it gets time to actually he's doing 2 or 3 transactions, the next step is to open up time. Because at the end of the day, like I told you, we only have 24 hours. And 11 hours of our time is already dealt with between sleep and eating. So now you're only really left with 13 hours of your time. And within that 13 hours, you still have to spend time with relationships that's close to you, your wife, your kids, or whoever you're actually is close to you. That's going to take at least an hour or 2 hours. And then you're actually really down to like 10 hours. So, having the 2 hours of prospecting is a very critical part of your business, but no one does it. I mean, no one does it, the one that doesn't actually produce anything. So if you're actually listening to me, you're probably right now, and you're realizing, oh my gosh, I'm already doing a lot of transactions, it's because you're doing your prospecting. But if you're not doing a lot, when I say a lot of transaction, my minimum standard when I was actually working at Remax was minimum of 6 transactions a month. That was my minimum standard. And the most I ever done in 1 year is $920,000 in commissions, 92 transactions. And the most I've done in 1 month is 18 transactions closed. And the most I've done in 1 weekend is 9 transactions closed. It's the focus, guys. It's the habit. But on that same note, I was making about between 40 to 60 phone calls a day. And I'm talking about phone calls from people I know, from people I don't know. And if I run out of list of people, I actually buy the dang list and actually make some phone calls that way. So when you want something bad enough and you want to succeed in this business, believe me, there's a lot of ways to do it. One of the things I learned from my mentor, because I had a mentor, first 4 years of my career, I was selling 1 house a year. And I was getting ready to quit. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is too expensive for me to actually be in the business. And then I met this guy who had all these files on his table, right? And I was like, look, you could use an assistant. It's like, yeah, I have an assistant, but she doesn't do anything for us. It's like, well, I'm actually with a broker. Why don't you trade me with her, and then I'll actually do all this work for you. So I ended up working with this person, and one of the things I can never forget what he told me is when your desire turns into an obsession, that's when you find success. And I actually stuck to that for a while, like 3-4 years, and I mean, my business just took off. And I'm talking about between 60 to 90 transactions a year. My mentor was cutting me a $90,000 check in 1 month. And the reason why all this is possible is because my habits change. And bottom line is, however you want to drive this, your habits need to change. So if you're looking at whatever's happening on that 10 hours, I think we broke it down to 10 hours now after spending time with family and everything, you got really 10 hours to work. What do you do with that 10 hours? Do you actually make anything productive within the business? Or do you actually mow your lawn? Do you do your dishes? I mean, at some point, my mentor was asking me, Mark, you're so lucky. You have a live-in nanny and you actually have a cleaning lady. I don't even have that at my house. And I thought like, well, that's how I'm able to assist you and work full-time at the same time, because I had to free up time. Because at the end of the day, I don't have time. I mean, I know how to fix my own car. I know how to even paint the dang car. I mean, I know how to actually do a lot of things. I'm very handy at home. But I prefer to look at my time in terms of the best use of my time. So point is, you can pick up habits, certain things that you like, and you can make an excuse of it. But if you're not producing anything in this business yet, you have to remove certain things that are not income producing for you and replace it with a habit that could potentially give you revenue. So once you start hitting 4 to 5 transactions, you would need at least a virtual assistant to actually cover for some of the paperwork that comes right behind that stuff. And then once you actually start growing to like 6 to 8 transactions, then you need a full-time assistant. And the reason why is because, like I said, again, the assistant frees up your time so you can have your 10 hours to do more prospecting. So you want to grow this business, focus on the prospecting, have time also, of course, for marketing. I mean, you know, some people think like, oh, prospecting is the only thing that actually works. You know, marketing does da-da-da. Well, guess what? That's the cheapest one. Back then, it wasn't the cheapest one. I paid $700, $800 a month on my cell phone bill because my minutes were like between 4,000 and 6,000 minutes a month, right? It wasn't cheap to make phone calls back then on a cell phone. But now we have unlimited cell phone use. I mean, you can call anytime. You can even call across the United States with no long distance fees, right? It's free, guys. Make use of something that's free first. Make use of what Samsung has to offer you. We have the mail room there that are actually giving away like postage and all that stuff for your 200 mailings of your listing. Make use of it. Take advantage of it. There's open houses, flyers, or what do you call it, brochures you can get. I mean, some of these things are even free, you know, for a certain amount of order that you actually get from Samsung. So that's definitely something that you want to make use of. That's what you use the rest of your 8 hours. So if you have 10 hours, 2 hours should be on prospecting as a habit on a regular basis. And then the 8 hours that you use is to actually, a portion of that should be used on personal development. Because remember one thing, guys, we don't sell houses here. We sell ourselves. So at the end of the day, when you're meeting with a client or you're meeting with a person, right, you are the person that they need to trust and like. So on a weekly basis, you have to spend at least 1 to 2 hours on personal development, figuring out how to become a better person. Because at the end of the day, if you're a lousy person, nobody wants to do business with you. I don't care what marketing you do, but the time you talk to them on the phone, they don't like you on the phone, they won't do business with you. Plain and simple. So there has to be some type of a habit of being able to work on your personal development. And that actually requires really that much, but changing a habit. So when you're in a car, right, it's not encouraged to actually talk on the phone. Well, guess what? There's Audible, there's audiobooks that you actually can listen to in your car that you can, while you're driving, you can actually absorb some of the information that can help you be able to deliver your message better to your clients, be able to get to your clients to like you better, be able to understand how the psychology of how they're thinking. I can never stress any more how important it is for you to know how your clients feel through nonverbal communication. So when you're actually starting getting cues, you have to be able to actually be able to pick that up. So being able to sit in your car, if you think about how many hours you spend in a week driving, it's at least more than an hour, I can tell you. Almost guaranteed you're spending at least more than an hour, especially in Virginia where everything is so a little bit more further apart, you know? So use your time and spend at least a minimum 1 hour on changing a habit of either rather than listening to a radio or like rather actually talking on the phone, or which is very distracting when you're driving, or rather being able to actually listen to music on your iPad or whatever, iPod. I don't even know if they're around now. But the point I'm trying to make to you is change that habit into listening to audiobooks. I listen to at least 1 book a week. You can imagine how much information I have. My wife calls me a walking Google because she asks me about anything and any subject. I can talk to her like, boom, like this is what's going on here, da-da-da-da-da. I mean, go through the whole explanation because I know, because I'm actually very attuned to a lot of different areas of interest. So audiobooks to me is very important. In the beginning, what you need to work on is yourself. So a lot of psychology books makes a huge difference in terms of, you know, understanding the 5 personality types, the big 5 personality types. I covered that in another seminar actually several weeks ago. But that allows you to be able to interact with a person a certain way, so then they actually like you, because see, certain personalities don't kind of clashes with other personalities. But if you know what type of personality you're dealing with, you would be able to actually not bore them to death if they're like all into life excitement and all that stuff, and then you start talking to them about accounting. I mean, you probably have 2 seconds, 10 seconds to actually like get their attention. After that, they're like going everywhere. And if you're actually talking about somebody who's more logical and you're trying to tell them about all these emotional stories and all that stuff to try to win them over, you're not going to win them over. So the habit of being able to listen to audiobooks on a consistent, regular basis is very important as well. Being able to understand people's feelings and understand exactly different angles that you will learn from audiobooks. And also some of the podcasts and YouTube videos that are relating to psychology makes a huge difference in terms of our business, because like I said, we sell us. So the better we speak, the better we communicate, the better we understand others, the better we listen. All these things are very important to creating success in our business. So the habit of being able to listen to those audiobooks is very good. And some podcasts, I mean, I like Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this guy. Very interesting person. I mean, I listen to him once in a while, and and other people that are actually like dealing with how you talk to people, like Zig Ziglar and I was actually Rowan, I think I can remember his first name. Well, anyway, I was just listening to him actually earlier today, and that kind of giving me a different angle, something new that I haven't heard about. Point I'm trying to make is prospecting, number one, changing that habit. And to be honest with you, a lot of the things, if you think about it, one of the things that I would highly recommend in terms of the habits you currently have, what you need to do is track what you do in a 7-day time frame. Every single item you write down, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, naturally. Whatever you're doing naturally, at the end of the day, track it down and see where you are. And then what you will find are inefficiencies in your particular process. Remember one thing, if you don't change your habit, you will make the same income you make right now, whatever it is. But if you're trying to grow, this is the area where you can actually focus on the habits that you currently have, removing certain things from it. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to remove things that you're not happy with. Remember one thing, there's looking at it from your habits. You also have to have a habit of keeping yourself positive. So if all you do is work, eventually it will get to you and everybody around you. And what people don't realize is your mood, your persona, and how you feel affects everybody around you. So if you're constantly stressed out and you come home and you bring home stress to your home, they're going to give stress back at you. It's a mirror effect. So this is the importance of being able to actually, where we come into the discipline part, being able to compartmentalize your life. So when you're actually working, you're working. When you're actually hanging out with your family, you're hanging out with your family. The whole world can burn down, okay? But remember one thing, if you understand what your mission is if my mission is to have a family, take care of my wife and my kids, then I need to make sure, like no matter what's happening around me, how stressful it is, we have a closing today and that I don't forget that my wife and my children comes first. Now, of course, what comes first before that in my world is God. So, but at the same time, in this world, it's my wife and my children. So, if it's going to affect them, I need to step out and finish whatever I need to do and then come back in afterwards. But this is how important it is to make this compartmentalizing as part of your habit. So if you haven't done so, or you're starting out in this business, make sure that you compartmentalize your life between work and play and relationships. Because if you're not able to do that, and that stuff starts to mix, and you get stressed at home and you bring it home, you're not going to have a home to come home to. We have one of the highest rate of divorce in careers. Look it up, guys. I mean, Google it. I can tell you right now, the habit of being able to compartmentalize your emotions within the areas that you are at, which means if you're actually at home, be present, not just present as in like there, but not here. Be present here and everywhere in that sense, like physically and mentally present. And that's one of the biggest mistakes successful people that has done in this business. I myself am guilty of that because that's probably the reason why I'm on my second marriage. So please do not make that mistake and have a habit of actually compartmentalizing. So I'm giving you guys some ideas in terms of the habits part of this. I'm actually not going with my presentation. Maybe I should now. But essentially, the habit of being able to compartmentalize is very, very important in your business, because what affects you as a human being affects everyone around you. And guess what? Your clients are also around you. So which means if your wife or your husband is like at you, or like your partner or your whoever you're with, and they're like so frustrated with you, right? Guess what? If you don't know how to compartmentalize that, then you'll be taking it out on your clients. You don't want to be taking it out on your clients because that's your revenue stream, right? We got to think smarter than this, be able to actually compartmentalize. So habits of compartmentalizing, and if you haven't done so, this is the best time to do it. Being able to do that now that you're actually aware of it. Because some people, for the many years, if someone actually showed me this, that the importance of actually compartmentalizing my career, I would actually probably take off even further than what I've done in my career, because I was more focused on my career, but then I didn't focus on my family. You got to be able to actually balance those things out. And we have a tendency, once business are starting to flow, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like a whole, like a whole river of business coming in, it's a waterfall, right? So we got to take advantage of it. Yeah, take advantage of it. But don't forget why you're trying to get that water is to be able to actually get everybody else to drink also, for the people that you care about. So if you forget about the people you care about, you never brought that water back home for people to drink, for your family to drink, you won't have a family. They're all dead. So you got to look at that business, and also you got to look at your personal life, and you compartmentalize it, and that's another habit that you need to pick up. So the definition, I guess we already gone through, and the definition of discipline, the definition of discipline is train oneself to do something in a controlled and habitual way. See how these two things correlate to each other? Habit and discipline? Because the discipline creates the habit, and the habit is maintained through discipline. They're like coexisting. They're like yin and yang in that sense. People don't see it that way sometimes, but yes, it is a yin and yang. If you don't have the discipline, then you won't maintain the habit. But if you don't have the habit, then it's hard for you to be disciplined because you don't know what to discipline yourself on. So it's a matter of figuring out what's a good habit to you and what's not a good habit to you. That comes into the whole business planning and personal life planning. See, our lives as realtors or real estate agents or whatever business that we get into, especially in this kind of business, is all interrelated. So this is the reason, more important, the reason that when you plan something for your business, it'll affect your lifestyle. It'll affect your life as well. So when you create a business plan, it should come right next to it, your personal plan. What are you trying to accomplish in your life? What are you, maybe send your kids to college or retire your parents, that are still working, whatever it is, right? And that's the reason why they're all connected. So it's very important that you understand that there's a dynamic of the discipline and the habit, and the dynamic in our kind of work that we do, that our personal is business. When some people come up to me and says business is business, well, guess what? You're not going to have a lot in this business if that's how you think, because people don't want to be thought of as a business when they're trying to purchase the biggest purchase in their life. They want to be special because they're about to buy the biggest expense that they'll ever actually get to have each and every time, and they're going to buy it with you. So if you're going to treat them like a business, they don't want you. They want you to care about them. People actually want people that will serve them the best, that care about them as human beings first, not as a business. See, I can understand if your clients are businesses, then yes, business is business, because whatever affects that person is an employee of that company. It's not necessarily like, it's going to affect their kids or how they're going to live and that kind of stuff. But our business is really affecting people's lives in some way or another. In 2008, when the 7 or 8 about the market to crash, right? All these people started losing their homes. I helped 86 families actually modify their mortgage for free. I helped them, show them around, navigate through the whole process. They're like, what do I owe you? No, you don't owe me anything. Referrals, maybe, how much does that cost you if you refer business to me? So I turned it into a marketing tool for me to actually help them. It's like, to me, it's very rewarding, because the kind of work that we do, we have the ability to help. We have the ability to make something happen for someone, and the amount of care that we put into. So being able to kind of, focus on that person makes a huge difference. So one of the books I recommend is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's by Stephen Covey. This is one of the first books that actually changed my career. One of the things I can tell you is it gives you step-by-step process on how you would plan your life so that your life is intentional. See, if you don't make these decisions, someone else will. And this is the reason why people get into this business. 90% of you guys end up actually going back to a full-time job, because someone else is dictating your future. So the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is really pointing out that if you do have these 7 habits down-packed to the levels that you know exactly what's in this book, believe it or not, it will change your whole career. And I've actually so far have changed like 6 of my mentees' career, from doing nothing to doing a lot of transactions, mainly from giving them homework of what books to read next. So personal development is one. I can't teach you these things. You have to teach yourself. If you're motivated to actually grow in this business, you gotta get, and if you're guided the right way, you gotta get that information and then apply it. See, one of the things on this book it actually mentions is knowing and not doing is really not knowing, which is kind of interesting, because what people, I already know that. Great. Are you doing it? No, it's a waste of time. Okay? Then you don't really know it, because you haven't applied it. But these certain habits that you actually apply in your business, you already know. All of us already know prospecting. Come on. You get into a sales business, you're not doing prospecting, you're not doing any business, plain and simple. But why am I actually putting it out there? Because I'm giving you a set amount of hours that you got to think. If you're actually in these 2 hours that you have, the more efficient that you have those 2 hours to be in making phone calls and not procrastinate and like, I got to do something else before I get this. Because it's uncomfortable, right? So what do? Like, you know what? I gotta put that pie in that oven, and then I'm gonna go back into prospect. And then you pick up 20 minutes of that time and eat away. And then like, shoot, yes, that's right. I forgot, I need to do this. Once I get this thing out of the way, then my mind is clear, I will go ahead and go back into prospect. All of us have done it, and all of us are guilty of it, okay? And the reason why I bring this up is because the distraction in this business is what makes people fail. The first 4 years of my career, it's all distraction. I'm like the master of distraction. Not destruction, but distraction. When I'm talking about that is like, looking at it from, okay, I had 4 careers I'm pursuing. I had a degree in accounting, so I was doing accounting work for bookkeeping. I was doing tax returns. I was actually recruiting for a recruiting company, and I was doing real estate. Okay? As a matter of fact, I think there's a 5th one. I was actually doing stocks. I had my Series 6 and 63 license trying to sell stocks. So imagine 5 things. I'm like, oh my gosh, I graduated college. I'm like so green. I'm like, oh man, I'm on top of the world. I'll make this thing happen. That year I made a good $24,000, and mostly from salary and, a couple tax returns that I did and a couple bookkeeping stuff I did. 1 real estate, and that was it. The point I'm trying to make to you guys is the focus is very important. The habit and being able to actually consistently be focused is where the discipline comes in. See, whatever you do right now that you plan and you do it for the first 2 weeks, great, you started a habit. But how do you be consistent at it, right? That's where you really got to dig in. That's where you got to have your mission statement on a regular basis. That's how you actually constantly learning new things and applying those new things into the, so then everything's always exciting, right? Because after a while doing the same thing over and over, it gets boring. Like, oh my gosh, I made 50 calls, but then you didn't change anything on your script. Some people just really didn't care about listening to you on the phone and how you're complaining about your life instead of actually asking about theirs, and instead of actually having a particular format that you're running into. And I'm pretty sure you guys have heard of FORM, or FORD, they call it in other places. But FORM, family, ask them about their family, their occupation, their recreation. I mean, that's also a habit in itself. It's kind of funny because my ex-wife used to, when I pick up the phone, I talk to her, it's like, Mark, I'm not your client. Can you get off that script? I'm like, okay. It's just a bad habit, actually. I need to compartmentalize, and hence the reason why it's an ex-wife. So point I'm trying to make to you is compartmentalizing is important in that sense, right? So that's a habit in itself. Talking to people, it's a habit of being able to listen and then talking. This is the biggest problem I've had all my life. So now I'm actually doing motivational speaking. This is great. I can talk for an hour. This is like, whoo, I'm letting it all out. Well, anyway, the listening part is something that people want to be heard. It's the likability factor. You know, the more you listen to people, the more they like you. You don't even have to do anything to listen except, yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, empathize with them once in a while. I mean, in a span of 20 minutes, you can imagine the habit of being able to listen to people. If you actually have something in the back of your mind saying, okay, let's do this Pareto effect, you know, the 80-20 rule, right? It seems like everything applies on this 80-20 rule. You know, 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people, or 80% of the 80% of the people are actually sometimes 80% of the people are not producing. 20% of the people are actually taking off in their career. Well, you know what? 80% of the time you're listening, 20% of the time you're talking. Oh my gosh, this is like golden. I mean, I'm still working on it up to this day because I haven't gotten to that point. But that's another habit that you pick up when you're going through the process, right? Even in the 7 habits of highly effective people, it brings that up. He highlights the whole idea that listening is actually a habit that successful people have. It's just a given. So the way he broke it down is be proactive, which means you kind of go after things you want. Don't wait for people. That's one of the things, another habit that you need to pick up if you want to be successful. A lot of people actually like, oh, I was waiting for you. That's why all these excuses come up afterward, right? I already discussed it in another seminar. It's like if, but, why. Some of these words that you actually use on a consistent basis is something that you don't want to use in your success, because anytime you get an excuse why you didn't do a certain thing, it's one paycheck that you don't actually get, one income that you normally should have gotten that you didn't get. And it's interesting, when I had the brokerage and I have all these people working with me, at some point they come up to me and they're like, oh, it's because of this, the craziest part is I had my meetings at 6 a.m. I completely forgot how early it was on a Saturday morning. And the reason why I had it that early at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning, because that's how I would gauge what time everybody shows up on that meeting and how motivated they are. So if they show up at 5:50 in the morning at the office before 6 o'clock, oh, I know they're very excited about working. But if they show up at like 6:30 and they're late on a Saturday morning, which, and give me an excuse, I know it's going to take them time to actually grow their careers. Because the excuses, the habit of coming up with excuses, is the biggest reason why people don't succeed in this business. Oh, because this thing happened to me. Remember the because part. because this thing happened to me. I actually had this client, and I don't really do very well with clients, people that already know me. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a personality thing that we need to work on. If people are supposed to be around you, they're supposed to like you. Why don't they like you? Did you ever ask you that? The biggest, the nicest, the biggest answer that you can get is through the mirror. When you look at yourself and you want to be honest in the mirror, you look at yourself like, are you a likable person? It's like, and if you want to actually gain confidence, I always tell myself, man, I love you, man, I love you. Like I talk to myself in a mirror, okay? Because if nobody's going to tell me they love me, guess what? I'm going to tell myself I love me. That's the one way I can exist in this world. That's my point. So you yourself have to actually kind of have that kind of habit of being able to build yourself up, because sometimes you're surrounded with negative people, and the worst part, since we end up getting married to opposite of our personality, they tend, after a while, a certain amount of years, they start to put you down. They actually start pointing out like the annoying things that you're doing, right? It's natural, it's normal, but the point is you don't have to deal with that. You actually can kind of keep building yourself up to the level where when someone tells something negative to you, it's like, you don't have to say that. That's another thing that I can mention to you. There's many ways to deal with people. You don't have to justify anything to anybody. That's another habit. Right? We have a habit of, oh, well, it's because of this, that's why I'm like this. Like, because we're like little kids. But when you become adults, you don't really have to answer to anyone except yourself and your behavior. So somebody can tell you, oh, you're a lousy friend, You're like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I am. Maybe that's what I can work on. So being able to actually like recognize and understand where you are is a habit on its own. Being able to actually be accountable is a habit of its own. So accountability is a huge part of successful people, and that is brought up in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Be proactive is really going after what you want and being able to actually not having excuses why you didn't get a certain thing. And then this next one here is begin with an end in mind. A lot of the times we want to start something, and there's a lot of ways for us to start something. Oh, I want to actually do accounting, or I want to do engineering, I want to do programming or whatever, right? They start, and then it gets hard. Guess what they do? They quit. You get into the real estate business. Oh, I love to get into the real estate business. I've been doing, some kind of vocational work or whatever. Maybe you were a mechanic or whatever. Or you were actually a business owner of a retail shop. Great, right? You get into this real estate business, oh, I'm going to give it a try. I can tell you right now, when people tell me I'm going to give it a try, I already know they failed. Because the habit of having the wrong attitude of giving it a try is really already telling me you're not going to actually make it. See, if you're going to get into this real estate business, know what you want, right? So when somebody comes into me and tell me like, hey, I want to get into the real estate business, great. Why? Why you want to get into the real estate business? Oh, because now the reasoning makes a huge difference, okay? If the reasoning is like, oh, well, so-and-so told me I need to get into the real estate business because, or if the reason is like, oh my gosh, I bought a house and I saw my agent make like $10,000. I want to make that kind of money too. If the reason is relating to money or other people's agendas, I guarantee you that person's not going to make it. See, there's got to be more to it that you're going into. So getting into the business is beginning with an end in mind, which means you go into the business saying, you know what, I want to actually be able to retire in 5 years. That's the end in mind. I'm going into the real estate business because I want to retire in 5 years. And I want to have $2 million in my bank account, or I have $2 million in properties that I collect rent, and then I don't have to work at that point. I want to do charity work. This is exactly what my goal is right now. The divorce was devastating for my financial back then. I already reached my goal of making $1 million by the time I was 36, actually being net worth $1 million. Great. But all that stuff goes away as quickly as you actually get divorced. So that's why you got to take care of your family as part of the whole process of actually looking at that waterfall. You're seeing all this waterfall, actually all these water is available. and you took that, take a pail and you actually got some pail, and then you just sat there and drank it yourself, right? You got to look at it from, okay, well, I need to still keep watering, giving water to my family. And that's really the really important balance. But having beginning as a habit, beginning with an end in mind. So it doesn't just apply here. I wanted to learn how to play guitar, right? So my end goal was to be able to compose. Well, you can look me up on iTunes, and I'm actually in iTunes. I composed 13 songs, and I actually produced 2 that's actually on iTunes today. Because my goal was, I wanted to actually play guitar. I want to learn how to sing it, which I did, and then I learned how to actually compose on it in less than 3 years. So that's one of the things I wanted to do, and I got it done. And once I'm actually done with that, okay, let me move on to the next thing. So you start something, you finish something. This is a really good habit to have on anything you do. If you look back in your life and you start something, you never finish anything, I can guarantee you your life is not fulfilled. Because not finishing something you start is something that you actually eat up your time, and in the end, it's like, why the heck did I do that? That's where people have regrets. That's why it's very, very important that when you're going after something and you know what you want, you define it, you put it in writing, and that's another thing. Putting it in writing is the second part of the whole process. I'm telling you, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I apply probably 80% of this to my life, and I've seen my life grow in exactly the direction I want. Nobody can tell me that I'm not successful because I don't really care. When you get to that point, when somebody goes, oh, well, you're not doing da-da-da-da right now, I'm like, do you think I really care? Because I've already done that, Some of my friends are actually, multi-millionaires at this point because we're actually hanging out, like we're rich at some point. But right now, of course, I can't really hang out with them that much because they're like, okay, $45 drink, okay, peace. But the point is my priority has changed. It's no longer about being able to actually have a certain, like a high standard of living. My focus now is actually being able to actually leave a legacy, being able to actually, help as many people as I can to grow in this career. So this is my goal. So I have a beginning that when I actually went into this type of work that I'm doing today, my habit was begin with the end in mind. So I'm beginning here, and with the end in mind is TED Talk. I want to make it to TED Talk one of these days, right? So that's my goal. When I make it to TED Talk, then I move on to the next project, right? So that's the whole idea of beginning with end in mind. Always have something that you want to do. So if you want, on your real estate side, if you're starting in this business, set a goal. I mean, a realistic goal for me for the first year you're getting into this business, at least 12 transactions. That's when you know you're a full-timer. Outside of that, you are unemployed. If you don't do 12 transactions a year, right now, you're a part-timer if it's less than 6. I mean, 6, and between 6 and 12, you're a part-timer. Between 6 and below, you're unemployed. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, we want to actually say, oh, I'm a realtor. No, why don't you actually, if you say it enough that I'm unemployed, actually, believe me, it'll get to your mind at some point, and you're like, okay, I want to do something. So let's say you set yourself for 12 transactions in a year, right? If you're full-time here. If you're part-time, realistically, I would do 6 in the first year. Because it's the other 6 months that you're not producing is really you're actually growing yourself. So whatever your time that you don't spend in prospecting, after the 2 hours that you do, you should be spending it on growing, becoming a better person. And when I say growing, becoming a person, reading a book like this. I mean, this is to me, this is one of the best books that was ever actually written for me, at least. Now it might not be for everybody. But the third part, let's go to the third part. Put first things first. This is prioritizing. There's a 4-quadrant that this book actually talks about. It's urgent. And the first one is urgent and important. That's the first quadrant. The second quadrant is not urgent, but important. And then the third quadrant is not urgent, or not urgent, not important. And to be honest with you, I cannot even actually explain it unless I actually put it on the board. We don't have a board here. But there's 4 quadrants. And A lot of times we spend on things that are urgent but not important. And I can tell you the biggest no-no in our business that will eat up a lot of your time is your emails. I don't know how many emails you get in 1 hour, yet alone in 30 minutes. You are bombarded by email, but yet everybody's like, oh, this MailChimp is the best thing in the world. I'm emailing everybody. All these things are going right through, and I'm reaching out to all these people, and then no result. Well, guess why? Because you're one out of the 1,000 people that emailed that same person that day, okay? That's the reason why phone calls right now is the most effective marketing you could ever do, because it's hard to miss a call, especially if they like you. If they don't like you, they probably will never pick up the phone. That's the reason why you need to go back and look at yourself in the mirror and start studying these kind of books and start doing motivational books and personal development books. Because if people don't like when they see sometimes people even block you, right? I mean, you've had to block some people because they call the heck out of you like there's no tomorrow, and they're so freaking annoying. Like, I'd rather not do business with this person than pick up this phone, because they're like eating up all my time. Understandable. That's the reason why having a personal development habit of being able to grow yourself. So when you make a phone call, people love to hear from you. They don't have to hear from you every day or every week. I put my phone's schedule between 6 to 8 weeks. I call one person. That's 6 phone calls a year. If I hit all voicemail, I'm perfectly fine with that. That's not even 2 minutes of my time. But guess what? After a while, when they need something in real estate, they feel guilty. They're like, I gotta call this Mark back. He's been calling me for the past 3 years consistently, and I never actually return a single call. I feel like crap, but let me test him out. Hey, a cousin of mine like to buy a house. Can you help him actually buy a house? So sometimes they try me out first before they use me, right? But you don't know. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is having a habit of being able to improve your way of doing business by being able to actually, be consistent at it is very important. And putting first things first. That's actually another thing that he brings up. First things first. So the quadrant 1 is urgent and important. A lot of our issues are in that quadrant 1. The reason why is because we never dealt with quadrant 2. The quadrant 2 is not urgent but important, which means if you pay your bills early, then you don't have to worry about paying your bills on time. Or actually, if you paid it late, now you have to deal with the credit bureau to try to actually get rid of it. Now you spend more time because you made it urgent and important. I mean, that's just one example, right? So if you neglect your bills and then you expect to be able to buy a house, it's not going to happen, right? Because you're going to have bad credit. So credit, this is a really good example of what people do. They do like, oh, okay, the day of it's due, I'm going to go ahead and pay it. Well, you know what? Pay the minimum 1 week before at least, or 2 weeks before, then you're not stressed out, right? I mean, and then if you have extra money, pay it at the day of. It doesn't matter at that point, right? But sometimes people put everything last minute, and then all of a sudden, all the stress and chaos, and then they involve everybody around them. Like, all of a sudden, everything is a drama. Guys, we have enough drama that people bring to us. Don't create your own, okay? So that's really the putting things first, actually. Put first things first. Basically, the most important things that you need to deal with that's not urgent yet. Of course, you got to deal with the urgent and important first. But once you start catching up to that, you need to actually work on the things that are important so it does not become urgent. And a lot of the times, I've seen this many times in the loan business, and that's why you have to babysit your lender sometimes, because they put everything last minute. Next thing you know, you have 1 day to go to closing. I'm like, look, if you had the paperwork the day before, wouldn't it be better so we're not stressing out to like making sure that we settle on time the next day? So that's a good habit to have. Trying to actually get things most important that are not urgent done first. Of course, you got to do the urgent and important things first, but once you start actually dwindling that down, be proactive, like this thing says, and start working on the things that are actually not urgent but important. And then think win-win. This is another thing that they actually mentioned about the 7 habits. Well, a lot of the times when we negotiate transaction, we think we want to actually get everything for your buyer, everything. But if you burn that listing agent and that listing agent does a lot of business in this area, guess what? When they pick up a listing and they see your name, you're in the bottom of the list. You'll never sell a house with that agent if you actually burn them. When I say burn them, is you're trying to get everything for your buyer, right? But then you're not really thinking, what's a win-win scenario where my clients can win, but at the same time, the other people have a perception of a win. See, this is a good habit to have. When you're negotiating with people, don't just think of yourself or your client. Think about the overall health of exactly when it actually finishes, where you are with your client, with the agent, with the seller, because you never know when you can bump into them. What if the seller was so pissed off at their, which happened to me before, to their listing agent, I happened to be the buyer agent, and they loved me. So later on, 5 years later, they still remember me and they call me like, Mark, you were the one who actually bought our house, blah, blah, blah. We want you to list the property. I'm like, oh, thank you. So nice. Because I was actually always looking out for the best interest of everyone. Believe me, representation is great. You got to represent your buyer. But you don't have to represent the buyer to the point where you're stepping on everyone else. So this is a good habit to have if you're going to actually be successful in this business. Most of the agents that worked with me in transactions before, even whether it went well or went south, most of them love working with me. There's maybe a few people there that are just nasty. I mean, it's not my issue. I mean, I will be kind of up to kingdom come. I mean, like, you know, but the point I'm trying to make is you can't make everybody happy. If their intention is bad and they're trying to actually do harm or try to get you in trouble, that kind of thing, you don't need that. You don't need their business anyway. You know, that's when you actually say, okay, well, maybe I don't want to actually work with this person. But that should be few and far in between because most of us are actually good people. When we're in the real estate business and you're thriving and you're succeeding, it's because you yourself know how to sell yourself because you're a good person most of the time. Once in a while, you get nasty ones that sell once every 6 months houses, and they're actually like, oh, wow, I'm actually, I know my business very well. Okay, well, okay, you've been in the business 20 years and you've sold what? 20 houses? Oh, great, once a year. Good job. It's like, it sounds good, but the point is, our experience in this business is not counted by the number of years. It's by the number of transactions. And I can tell you, having sold over 1,000 houses, I have a lot more experience in terms of problem solving than most agents out there because I've run into every single problem you can imagine. Not every single, but most of every single problem that we ever imagine. So it makes a huge difference when I'm actually talking to an agent that's actually telling me an issue. I mean, I just like give them a whole roadmap. As a matter of fact, I think today or tomorrow we're having a settlement on a transaction that should have died in February, and it's still alive. Isn't that a miracle? So we're actually, so those things happen, but more importantly, having a habit of being able to think win-win all the way across the board. One agent came up to me and said to me, and this is actually a good one, the think win-win. One agent came up to me and said, hey, Mark, I've been trying to negotiate this $4,000 on the appraisal difference on the property for weeks. How did you get it down for the seller to pay half of it? Because the seller won't pay anything. Because in the market we're in, seller actually, oh, I'm so confident I can put it back out on the marketplace. I don't need to sell it to you. We have money. You know, we're not in a hurry to actually sell. We can actually put it back on the market. So that's the attitude of the seller. How did I do it, apparently? Well, the think win-win actually, that habit of think win-win actually helped. And what I did is I talked to the listing agent. The listing agent was so nice. I couldn't even figure out, I was like, how the heck can you not actually negotiate anything with this guy? This guy is so nice on the phone. So I told him, listen, what does your seller want? What's going on with your seller? I mean, how come they're not willing to actually drop it down $4,000? What do they want? And they're like, well, you know what, they're just difficult, you know, they don't want to actually do anything because they think they can sell it again. I was like, okay, great. But where are they on the moving process? Are they moved out? Are they moving out? Are they planning on moving out? What's going on? Oh, well, they got stationed already in another place and they actually found a place already there. They're moving into another place. So they're actually even having 2 places now to move to. And I said to them, but it won't happen until a certain time, and and we're settling earlier. So then they're actually really like eating up time that they could use a later settlement than an earlier settlement. So I thought about it. The think win-win actually applied here. And I said to them, hey, listen, can you tell your seller that whatever date they want for the settlement, that our buyer is willing to work with that, just to accommodate them, to make sure they're comfortable so they don't have to move twice, Can you tell your seller that, and then let me know what they say? Because my buyer really doesn't have that much money to actually pay this $4,000 because they're already paying up this and that and that. So I explained to him. And he's like, yeah, sure, I'll ask him. Sure enough, ask the seller. Seller comes back. You know what, Mark? Seller said that they're willing to pay half of the $4,000, but they don't want to move the settlement because they figured actually it'll be okay with them. But imagine why the seller changed the mind, because I'm putting out something out there to let them know, hey, listen, we're willing to work with you. Work with us. I didn't even ask for that. They're the one who actually offered it. Seller says, okay, we'll pay half of it. But remember one thing. This negotiation's been going on for 2 weeks. Seller doesn't want to do anything. But the difference was the think win-win actually applied in this case, because I was able to kind of talk to the listing agent, through the listing agent to the seller, and say, listen, let us help you. Let us work with you. Let's resolve whatever issue you have. So the reciprocating part of our human nature comes in. And that reciprocation actually created the transaction to close. And it closed last week. So this is as recent as last week. Point I'm trying to make to you is, if you want to succeed in this business, okay, think win-win is part of what successful people have. Because what they think about is a mutually beneficial situation to make everybody feel good about what they're doing. And that's part of leadership as well. When you're trying to lead anybody, they would want to follow you is if they know you will be actually looking out for their interest. Because if you don't look out for their interest and you're only looking out for yourself or the company, people will reluctantly follow you until the point that they find something else to follow. Okay? So that's actually one of the qualities of leadership that a good leader has, is the ability to actually always think win-win. They're actually looking out for their people as well as their people looking out for them. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is the part when I was telling you 80-20 rule of listening, right? I mean, nobody's perfect, including myself. My personality is very talkative. I think you kind of picked that up by now. But I have to actually step back in situations where I need to step back on. And one of the things that worked very well for me actually is when you're able to have communication with somebody and allowing them to vent out if they're frustrated. So when your clients are frustrated, this rule, seek first to understand, then to be understood, is a very, very good rule. And seek first to understand is the listening part, right? Then to be understood is for them to receive whatever you're trying to say, not necessarily you saying it and not going anywhere. See, communication requires both directions. It's not a unilateral, it's a bilateral scenario. So I hear bilateral talks all the time. Well, guess what? Because someone's listening, someone's giving out, and then the other person's listening, and then someone. So then the reception is much greater. So when you're talking to people out there, when you're talking to your clients, get into a habit of understanding what they're trying to do, how they feel, why they feel a certain way, and their motivation of why they're trying to sell. So these are the things you want to understand. Once you pick that up, then you can cater your presentation. See, I have a very simple presentation, right? The presentation that I have is so simple that I actually pick it up from Bright MLS, the stats of what sells in that neighborhood. Outside of that, I actually just go out there and meet with the client, sit down with the client, talk to the client, and ask the client, hey, what are you trying to do? What's most important to you? Why are you doing this? All these questions that I'm asking, right? Because at the very end, I actually mentioned, okay, when you work with me, this is what I plan on doing. So then everything is catered to the client's needs. So by understanding them first, then I can be understood and I can put out my message the right way so then my client would want to sign the listing agreement. Bottom line is, your listing agreement is what you want signed. And for that person to sign your listing agreement, they need to know that you know what they're trying to accomplish and how they feel about it. See, some people actually go in there, business is business. Well, guess what? If that person is an emotional type of personality, and you say business is business, guess what? You're already one step out the door. They don't want you because they want you to care about them first. And if you don't feel like you care about them, the heck with you. And the sixth one is synergize. Synergize, being able to actually like get everybody's input and being able to actually do things based on everybody's input. So I always ask my client, how do you want the property listed? You know, same thing with my buyer. I sit down with my buyer and I look at properties together. So if they have unrealistic expectation, guess what? I address it right there because the MLS address it for them, not me. By me sitting down with them, I say to them, hey, look at this. Oh, so you're looking for this price and da-da-da, look what comes out. Oh, wow. What do you think of this? It's like, oh my gosh, there's no houses there. Oh yeah, I know. So what do you think we should do? Oh, Mark, we should bump up the price. I was like, let's bump up the price. Okay, let's go ahead and call the lender, make sure you're approved for that price. You know, so the point I'm trying to make is, I'm a tour guide. Guys, I am not here to sell houses, okay? I'm here to guide you through the process. And in that process, I make money, right? I'm a consultant, a person that you can come up with any problems. I always tell my clients, you know what? I am your aspirin. Because when you have a headache, you call me. That's my job. My job is to get rid of all your headaches, okay? So any headaches you have in terms of real estate related scenario, call me. And we'll figure things out and I'll give you solutions. 99% of the time, I'm very confident it's almost 99% of the time. When they do call me, I usually have the solution for them, or the solution is like one step away that we need to actually like go after. And then we get it. So, point I'm trying to make to you is synergizing with your clients is a very important process. Getting them involved in the search process, getting them involved in actually coming up with a price. Sometimes a client has an unrealistic price. I was like, hey, why don't we go on tour? I already scheduled this stuff. Let's go for a tour in the neighborhood. Let's go see this house and this house. And then once we actually took a tour of that house, we come back and then you tell me what price we should list it then at that point. I don't have to come up with that. Oh, need to list it at this price. Otherwise, no, I'm not here to sell you. I'm here to guide you, right? That's a habit in itself. You have to think about this scenario where you're looking at it from a synergistic standpoint, how you can get them involved. And then sharpening the saw. Remember I was mentioning your personal development? Personal development. When you're driving, personal development. When you're at home actually taking a dump, personal development. Yeah, any opportunity you get personal development in there, do it. Okay? That's my point. I mean, any opportunity you get personal development, do it. Until you know your business so well and you're successful, fine. Don't do it as often. That's fine. You can grow slower at that point. But if you're not doing like 12 transactions a year yet, yeah, every single moment that you actually, have, you're walking the dog, personal development, like listening to the audiobook. That's my point. Even on that, sharpening the saw is exactly that. Being able to fine-tune yourself and turn yourself from a diamond in the rough into a beautiful diamond. That's exactly the whole idea. So this is the 7 habits. Every single one of these 7 I've been applying in my career, and I've gotten so much success from it, and I hope you do too. Step to change your habits. This one I came up with, okay? So, if you don't like it, I mean, come up to me. Maybe I can improve. Let's synergize. So, identify the habit that you want to change. It's a given. It's like, anything else. If you want to actually problem solve, identify the problem, right? I mean, that's the first thing that you need to do. Not kind of complain about it or, that kind of stuff. Second one, measure the cost of that habit in comparison to your goals. See, if once you measure it, you'll understand whether you want to drop that habit or you want to actually continue it. If it doesn't cost you too much and you enjoy it, keep the habit. But when I say cost you too much, is if all that habit is doing is taking up your time, and that time is equating to no income in the end of the month, and then you're actually chasing the bill, you have more bills than the income, right? Then you need to change some things in your life. If you're not able to do it, start here. Measure the cost of the habit in comparison to your goals. If all you're doing is procrastinating and you measure it in 7 days, and 90% of the time you're actually doing something else outside of real estate, and you call yourself a full-time real estate agent, you're really an unemployed real estate agent. Not even real estate agent, because you're not selling any houses, so you're unemployed, period. You don't even have the title of real estate agent at that point. So measure the cost of that habit in comparison to your goals. That's the reason why you need to actually break down your goals into bite-sized pieces. Create the big, hairy, audacious goal. This is from the book Good to Great from Jim Collins. Big, hairy, audacious. You know why it's big, hairy, and audacious? It's because it's uncomfortable. If you think about the way it's actually worded, it's uncomfortable. It's yucky. It's something that you don't want to do. But that's what you got to do. You got to create it. You got to create a goal that's huge, that's feel like it's unattainable. Because I have this saying all the time, and I'm pretty sure it's out there. It's a cliche. It's like you shoot for the stars, you land in the moon, at least you're out of this world. And the whole idea is being able to actually go to space, right? Well, you know, nobody's even made it to Mars yet, right? I mean, we're on Earth. I mean, we made it to the moon once or twice, or how many times they actually landed in the moon. But there's nothing more important than to understand that you got to shoot for higher goals. Just like this one person I was coaching, he told me he was making 10 phone calls, but he wants to make $250,000. I was like, look, I've already made like 600,000, average 500,000 in 8 years straight, consistent 8, at least. If you average out my 8 years, it's $500,000 a year. I've done it. The big difference is, for you to get to that level, you need people around you. You need to leverage your time. Without the leveraging of your time, you don't get there. Because, like I said to you, you're down to 10 hours. And -2 for prospecting, you're down to 8 hours. So imagine if you're actually going to be selling, at least in his case, probably in this market, probably around 30 properties. For you to sell 30 properties, right, that's over once every 2 weeks you're going to need to closing, and you have home inspection, the radar inspection, or coordinating the stuff, writing an offer, ratifying contract, writing offers and offers and offers. In this market, probably you write 7, 10 offers for your client, for your buyer to get one house, right? I mean, it's crazy. What do you do with your time? You're going to run out of time, guaranteed, if you're going to sell 30 houses in this market. That's why this year I was kind of chilled, because I was thinking to myself, like, you know what? I'll leave it to the professionals to sell houses this year, because when the market crashes maybe next year, then I'm going to go 100 miles an hour at it. Then at least all those people that bought a house to their agents, they probably will not work with their agent again. And at that point, I'm actually just picking up clients left and right. And this year was my relaxed year, where everybody's stressing out, actually writing with all these offers. I'm like, forget that. I'm going to chill. I'm going to work actually just exactly what I need to do this year, which is basically this. I'm actually fine-tuning my skills in motivational speaking. That's one of the things I'm actually doing this year. That's one of my goals. One of my goals, of course, is to maintain 25 transactions closed this year, because COVID last year brought me back to like 25. So I was like, okay, 25 this year is cool. I'm going to do 25 transactions this year. But more importantly, right, I have my goals in very specific, with a beginning and an end in mind, like we were talking about earlier. Next one, create and break down the process and steps to achieve the goal. See, that's the thing. We have goals. And the biggest problem with goals is it's so lofty. It's like it's clouds. It's not really like something tangible. That's the problem. All of us have the same problem. Not until you write down exactly what you want to make to the last penny. And that book is called Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill, one of the first people that actually wrote like personal development books. Think and Grow Rich made me realize that if you wrote down exactly to the penny what you want, your chances of getting to that goal is much, much greater. I would say 5, 6 times greater than if you never wrote it down. Why? Because after a while, your mind starts making excuse. Oh, okay, I make like $25,000 so far, so my goal now is like $80,000. So you keep constantly adjusting. But if you're looking at this and you're looking at your goal, and you broke it down to the daily activities. See, not many people break it down to daily activities. They don't even break it down to hourly activities, yet alone daily activities. You're lucky if you got it on a monthly basis, how much you're supposed to be making on average. But you're lucky even if you even wrote it down to begin with. I guarantee you, some of you guys in this room never wrote down exactly to the penny what number you're going to make in 2021. Why? Because you didn't know. Because nobody told you. But nobody told me either. I just did the personal development part of it and took a shortcut and actually figured out that this is what I needed to do. And guess what? It's being taught to all these seminars that you go to that you pay a lot of money for, that you need to put down your exact number. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, man, I paid $500 for someone to tell me this for this seminar. It's like, well, by the way, this is free, right, guys, Samson? So write down exactly your number and then break it down in terms of number of transactions. Some people want to break it down in terms of, oh, volume. Who cares about the volume? I mean, I care about what I come into my pocket with, my commission. So if you look at your average commission out there, and you'll probably get a number. 2.5% usually is what we get nowadays for buyer agency, thanks to Redfin and Zillow. Thank you, guys. You know, you ruin our business. But if you look at the breakdown of everything that actually you have in terms of average commission, you will find a number in the area you're doing business in. Whatever that number is, in my area, it's probably around between $8,500 to $10,000. Actually, it used to be more because, 0.5% is a lot, believe it or not. I mean, it just takes a big chunk out of your, it's like at least like, what, 15% off. We're on sale right now, guys. So the point I'm trying to make is, if it's, let's say, $10,000, right? So now you look at your exact number you want to make. This year, I want to make, let's say, $250,000, right? So I break it down on 10,000 each. That's 25 transactions that I'm going to need to do this year, which means broken down into a monthly basis, that's 2 transactions per month on average, right? So now I got a 2 transaction a month on average. In the back of my mind, I need to close. So how do I get 2 transactions a month? Okay, let's think about this. 2 transactions a month. In a market, the crazy market we have, you need probably about 10 buyers to close 2 transactions. That's probably the numbers that we're looking at this point. And for listings, you get 1 listing, you sell 1 listing. So typically, I get, for every listing, I get 2 buyers. So that's the numbers. So know your numbers. So now I broke it down, right? So 2 transactions per month, number of leads that I need to get the number of clients I need to get. So this is how you break it down. So the 2 transactions, I need about 10 buyers and probably 1 listing. 10 buyers, 1 listing, but 11 at all times. So I need to build up to that number. How do you get 11 clients? Well, 50-50 leads actually happens because some people are not qualified. So that's about 22 leads, right? On a consistent basis that you kind of maintain 22 leads. Out of 22 leads, how many calls you need to make? In this market, for buyers, I'm pretty sure you don't need to go a lot because there's a lot of disgruntled buyers out there that can't get their houses. So they keep switching agents, and it's your opportunity to actually pick them up. So you probably would need about 100 phone calls in a month to do. That's not a lot. That's 25 calls per week. That's about 5 phone calls per day, guys. Can you imagine how powerful 25 looks like? So that's the simple science, right? So right now I'm probably making about 25 phone calls a week. I mean, I'm guilty of actually not making enough prospecting calls. That's because I'm chilling. Well, anyway, the point I'm trying to make to you is you need to look at it from a breakdown of the activities that you need to do. So realistically, for somebody like me, I'm already been in the business for 26 years. I just get leads all the time anyway, so that's just bonus for me. So, 25 calls a week for me is nothing, right? But for somebody that's new, you don't get that kind of leads I get, right? So you and I cannot be compared side by side right now and say, oh, well, Mark, I'm not you. Well, exactly, you're not me. So guess what? You're going to need to do 5 times more than I would. So hence, if I make 100 phone calls, you should be making 400 to 500 phone calls to achieve the same number. So hence, the numbers actually go up. And, for the 250, you're probably going to be doing about 20 phone calls a day, or 15 15 to 20 phone calls a day. Point I'm trying to make to you is, if you have a certain goal, you got to break it down into daily activities. If you haven't done so, okay, get into that habit of being able to do so, because you need to know what's going on in your business at all times. If I came up to you and asked you how many sales you've made, right, you know exactly what your numbers are, right? But if I came up to you and said, what did it take for those sales to actually become sales? What activities did you do? How many phone calls did you make? You need to track those, because that's actually much more measurable and much more realistic in terms of what you can do to improve your business. See, you can get lucky and people walk into your door literally and want to buy a house, right? But we don't rely on luck here, guys. This is a business that we decided to get into. It's a business. We're not in the business of waiting. This is the reason why picking up the habit of being proactive is here. It's being able to know how many activities that requires for you to make a certain amount of sale based on a particular number that you set up, because your life is intentional. Even then, the $250,000, you minus taxes off of it, you minus bills out of it, or minus savings, how much you're planning on saving out of it, and then you minus your vacation out of it, and whatever's left is whatever's left, right? You need to break that down on the personal life, because what do you want to do? You want to change your life extravagantly, or you want to actually downgrade, downsize, or whatever you want to do, right? Have a plan, because otherwise life will plan for you. This is a really good habit to pick up, is always constantly planning your life, planning your career, planning your business in terms of activities. So whatever you're doing right now and that you're not doing, this is one of the things I would highly recommend, is to get into a habit of tracking your activities. How many phone calls am I making? How many converted? How many people actually am I marketing to, whether it's social media or whatever? What kind of result did this produce? Every marketing that you're doing, you better be tracking it, because otherwise you're wasting your money. So, step to change your, create and break down the process, and step to achieve the goal. So this is one of the things that we just brought up right now. So, step-by-step process of exactly what activities that you're doing. You're mailing out. How many mailings are you doing? What kind of results is it producing? Everything that you do in this business that's costing you time or money, you better be tracking. And not only tracking, if I come up to you and ask you, you better know it. These numbers is something that you need to internalize in the back of your mind if you're going to be in this business, because you need to know how you're producing the income. Otherwise, you can't duplicate something you don't know how it got there, right? This is very important to actually understand. This is a habit of creating that. And then once you've created that process, then you got to be disciplined enough to be consistent to measure. This is sometimes we do it in the first few months because you're so excited. Oh my gosh, I learned something new. And then you actually write it down, and then like, oh, I'm going to do this. And then you started doing it a few months later, and like, oh my gosh, it's kind of boring. So let's put it aside. The discipline. That's where the discipline comes in, right? Slowly replace your current habits with new habits from the step-by-step breakdown of the goal. So, like I said to you, prospecting calls. I'm giving you already like some ideas how to do this. 2 hours a day, right? You can make that prospecting call phone calls 2 hours a day. You can make it some emails, some phone calls, but I would actually just focus on phone calls on the 2 hours, and then the rest of the time do something else, do marketing, show up to like events. I don't know, it's encouraged to show up in events yet, but if you get a chance to actually show up to events, great. You meet new people, you add it to your database, and then you put them in a 6 weeks to 8 week schedule to actually contact them, and you just grow your business naturally, organically, you know? Someone actually came up to me and was like, oh, I don't have any business, I don't have anybody I know. And I'm like, you go to church? Like, yeah, I go to church. How many members do you have? Oh, we have like 3,000 members. Great. Can you volunteer? and actually, you know, when you volunteer to something, they usually give you a list of people to call or actually create the organizing and everything. You meet all those people. And then you put them in, they all become your friends, and some of them want to buy a house. Guess what? You're a realtor. You don't have to even mention it to them. It'll just come up through conversation as you converse organically, naturally. So replace your current habits with new habits. So if whatever you're doing right now, you're doing social media, you're doing Facebook and everything, or doing whatever, and you're not producing anything, it's been at least 3 months. Usually I I review my marketing quarterly to make sure that it's on target. And if it's not producing anything after 6 months, sometimes I give it another try, make sure that it's actually, I've done everything I can. If it's not working, I can it. And I can tell you, probably went through 30, 35 different marketing tools over the years. I just, I go through it, I see if it's working. If it's working, I maintain it. If it's not working, I throw it out. What's the point of keeping it after 6 months and not producing anything for you? Add discipline to be consistent of achieving daily tasks, to achieve the broken down process. Like I said, the discipline is where you create the consistency. But how do you be disciplined about it? Well, it's kind of nice to be motivated if you want to be disciplined, If otherwise everything's become suffering, right? And we're not into suffering out here. We're into kind of having fun while we're doing our business. So if you are in this business and you want to be disciplined, then create a drive, a motivating factor, the mission statement we talked about, that'll keep you going every day, that you actually get excited about doing the work. Measure your success over time with created benchmark. That's the quarterly thing that I was telling you about. I benchmark all the work that I'm doing. After 6 months, if it's not effective, I actually make changes. You gotta create the changes, because what happened in 2008, I received 8 listings that I sold from 8 agents that went out of business. Okay, and they went out of business and they sent me the referrals. So guys, our fellow agents, we are friends. We are advocates. I can tell you. Because if you go out of business, you can always refer it to me. This is how you need to think about this. Because sometimes we look at our colleagues as competitors, or our other agents from other offices are competitors. They're not. They're only competitors if you think that way. They could be advocates if they end up sending you business. See, that's really the difference. It's a perception of what you look at, the way the business is looked at. Stay persistent until you achieve the goal, and then habits are formed. The persistency of achieving the goal is exactly what the begin with an end in mind is all about. Because you don't stop until you get to your destination, the end that you had in mind. You don't stop, you just keep going. But if you got this habit down packed, I can guarantee you, you'll be very successful in this business, because this business requires a lot of gut-wrenching, soul-searching feelings and emotions aside, because there's going to be a lot of people out there that are actually well-intended, good people that can sometimes perceive you as not as a person that really looked out for them. And you have to be able to actually kind of accept that not everybody you're going to please. And it's okay. So success is an accumulated habit achieved over time. That's essentially what success is in our business. Role of discipline in success. Well, role of discipline with success. The discipline helps us actually delay the gratification. In our business, it's full of delayed gratification. Like right now, I'm seeing pizza on the corner over there, but I'm delaying it even though I'm hungry, because I'm so excited to talk to you about this subject. Delayed gratification. So I'm already looking forward to eating lunch if I'm invited to that. But the point I'm trying to make to you is delayed gratification. So what we have is something we do now that we work so hard for. Sometimes we get nothing. I had an agent that I was working with that I'm actually training at some point. Her first 3 transactions fell apart, nothing to do with her. She was really devastated. She's like hoping that she was going to make the income on that properties. One of them actually, the husband didn't want to sign. The other one was a divorce. One person didn't sign. And the third one actually, like some mother-in-law showed up and decided to move in with them, so the house is too small, so they cancel the contract, willing to lose the deposit. 3 transactions, dead in the water. Nothing you can do about it, right? If I wasn't actually talking to her or helping her or whatever, she would have quit the business, because I would. If nobody actually told me, if this is going to be like 3 transactions in a row on my first 3 deals, and I've never seen anything else and nobody's telling me anything, I'm going to quit. You're going to quit too, more than likely, because what's the point after working 3 months, you get paid 0? But the point I'm trying to make is you learn that the short-term gratification versus the long-term reward aspect of it. And I explained that to her in the long term. And today she's very successful because what she came to realize is you got to look at your goals in a year time frame, and you got to look at your activities and keep focusing on your activities. Things will fall apart sometimes. And sometimes you get a lot of transactions. I mean, like I told you, 18 transactions in 1 month is insane. Closed transaction in 1 month is insane by myself with one assistant. But you know what? I got lucky. It's not always going to be like that. It would be nice if it's always like that. But the point is, I had transactions where I got 0 transactions in probably like a year and a half later after that, right? But I'm okay with it also. Because I'm looking at this on a long-term reward portion of it. So you're going to have some frustrations. Don't quit. Just keep going. But whatever you do, make changes. After a certain amount of time, you're doing the same thing and it's not working. Change something. Because if you don't change something, that's the definition, clear definition of insanity, right? I'm pretty sure you guys know what the definition of insanity is, right? Like doing the same thing, expecting different result. That's insanity. Being able, okay, so they did a study on children, actually. That's one of the things I made note here. About like, we have that in us. Some kids, actually, they tested where they left marshmallows on the table. And, you know, they can have the marshmallow now, or you can have 2 later on. Well, 50% of them actually took the marshmallow. 50% of them actually wanted the marshmallow for every day after that. So we have it. Sometimes it's innate within our nature to actually gravitate towards getting something now. But the most successful people out there are actually reward driven in the long term. That's where they see the fruits of their labor in the long term. And being able to take control of your own life. I mean, this is exactly what I was saying, life intentional. By planning, executing plans, achieving unlimited success, and go after your dreams. Every single thing that I ever wanted in my life, I've gotten so far. And I'll continue to get it because this is the way I look at the world. With a certain amount of discipline that I would constantly go after the things I want. You create the quality of your life. Success is different for everybody. I think everybody knows that. I mean, success for me may be different from you. I mean, my success to me is not actually, you know, just making the millions of dollars. And some people's success is making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Success to me is actually being able to build a relationship as strong as I can. So one day I want thousands of people to show up to my funeral. That's my definition of success. So looking at it from that. Lifestyle is what we choose. So, you know, the only difference between really successful people and so-so people that are not doing too well is the lifestyle we live. I mean, some people want to live a simple lifestyle even if they're very, very successful, and some people actually want to live an extravagant lifestyle and they're really broke. So they end up keep filing bankruptcy and things like that. You know, it depends on how you want to live your lifestyle. But the discipline is being able to actually consistently be able to go after the things you want and the lifestyle you want. And that comes with things sometimes that you do that you don't feel like doing, but you know you have to get it done, right? And you gotta like really think deep, like dig deep inside you and actually kind of like, you know, part of it is actually mental toughness. You know, this is something that I've learned when I was actually in high school wrestling. Every day I was counting the day when it was the wrestling, because my first year was my senior year and I was on a varsity team, and I'm actually like competing on a 130 level where everybody's in it, and I keep like wanting to make sure that I'm actually on the mat, you know, for competition. So, but it was tough. But the begin with end in mind was there the whole time. I was thinking like, okay, I started this, I'm gonna finish it. You know, if it kills me, I'm gonna finish it. But I did. So that's something that you need to kind of start developing in this business, because there's going to be times that you're going to have a lot of disappointments. You just got to keep going. And it's nice to have people around you that's positive. If you have negative people around you, the dream killers, man, stay away from them. Sorry, I mean, that's one of the things that I can tell you, that why people actually quit is because they start listening to people who don't know what they're going through. Look, people like me know what you've gone through because I've actually did 4 years of 1 transactions a year, and I was getting ready to quit the business. It took me, maybe I'm the dumbest guy in the world, but it took me like 4 times to pass the real estate exam. The 4th time, I'm like, if I don't pass this, I'm gonna take it again. My brother actually beat me. He did 9 times. so the point I'm trying to make is like, don't quit. If this is what you want, go for it. Money affects lifestyle, that's for sure. That's one thing that if you want to choose your lifestyle, be rich. Okay? But if you want to actually have just one lifestyle, be poor. But I prefer rich, actually. It's kind of nice. Step to create discipline. Know your strengths and weaknesses. Before, when I was growing up, I was thinking, if you're looking at your strengths and weaknesses, you need to work on your weaknesses. That's basically what I was taught growing up. Work on your weaknesses. But when I actually kind of started reading personal development books, I realized, no, complete waste of time to work on your weaknesses. Delegate your weakness to someone who's strong at it. This is how you add value to your business. Don't think about your business as you're by yourself. Think about your business as you're building a team. And it doesn't have to be part of the team. The people that's around you doesn't have to be part of your team. I think team leaders out there, I see sometimes they got the biggest ego, and they just kind of like, oh yeah, I got a big team, I sell all these houses, but in reality, everybody's selling. And after a while, you're getting this whole turnovers because they're only focusing on themselves and not really taking care of the people in the team, right? So if you have a team out there, make sure you take care of your people that they want to be around because they're making income out of the business, not they're just running around for you, So know your strength and delegate your weakness. So apply your strength, which is great. Remove temptations and distractions. This is really the biggest fallout of agents in this business is all the distraction. And they're not able to actually clear up their schedule enough that they will be able to do prospecting or develop their scripts, the way they actually will speak to people, that kind of stuff. You have to have an approach, guys. You have to learn your approach. If you don't have an approach, and it's your own style. People tell me like, oh, but we're not you. I'm like, you're not supposed to be me. Because if you're supposed to be me, then there's no way you can succeed because I'm dysfunctional. Okay, you don't want to be dysfunctional, do you? So you have your own style. Create your own style. Know your own style, and that's how you're going to actually succeed. But more importantly, know the message. See, that's why you do personal development. You're actually starting to study more about how people succeed in this business. What do they say? What's the approach? That kind of stuff. You learn that from people like me or actually reading books. Set clear goals and have an execution on the plan. So I think I did something wrong with the English there. But yes, set clear goals and execute your plan. A lot of times people do planning. Okay, great, planning. A year later, they haven't even really touched or seen the plan after a year, right? Revisit your plan. Make sure that you're actually doing it consistently. Practice daily diligence. Just every day. Doing certain things to make sure that you're measuring, you're looking at exactly what you're doing, you're seeing if you actually can improve certain things or you can remove certain things out of your time to actually free up your time. That's the kind of thing. The best years that I had in my career, I had a coach. For that 8 years I'm making $500,000 a year, I had a coach. And that coach kind of kept me on board and making sure, because otherwise I'll be all over the place. So, it's the refocus part. The hardest people to focus is your own. The hardest lenses to focus is your own lens. You have sometimes need help from others to actually kind of input and to make sure you're focused on your work. Creating new habits and rituals aligned with your goals. That's something that people don't do enough. If you're going to set a goal for yourself, right, make sure that you have a habit to follow along to kind of like take that goal into the next level, which means when you get up in the morning, one of the first things that I do is I read my mission statement. It's the best thing in the world. I get excited about it, and then I actually start doing the things I need to do. One of the things I do in the morning is I look at exactly what my schedule looks like, exactly what I'm going to need to be doing, leave 2 hours for prospecting. Somewhere I time block. I don't know if you guys have any time blocks yet, but anybody who hasn't done any time blocking, that's one of the things I would do if you want to take this business to the next level, because you're going to start running out of time once you're doing 5-6 transactions a month. And believe me, 5-6 transactions is a very nice, decent income for you to actually come home to, because you can do a lot of things in your life. Change your perception about willpower. Sometimes people actually look at this business, or looking at the things that you want to do, and you get up in the morning, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like doing this, or believe me, if you say that you're a morning person, then you're going to be a morning person. If you say you're not a morning person, then your tendency is not to get up early. Your willpower is directly related to what you say to yourself, who you are. The minute that you define yourself that you're a certain way, that's who you're going to become. So understand something. If you want to be successful, then define yourself as someone successful. If you want to, when they say dress for success, the cliche, well, there's a reason for that. Because if you look successful to yourself, not even to everybody else, right? Then you'll feel successful, and then you'll act successful. You'll behave in successful ways, like successful people do. So, and then you have, give yourself a backup plan. This part here talks about you have a plan and things don't always work exactly the way you plan it. So the backup plan allows you to adjust. And this is what I keep mentioning. 3 months, I review my marketing, or I review my habits that I'm doing, right? If it's working, I keep going. If it's not working, I consider canceling it, or maybe give it another 3 months. And when 6 months come around and it's not working at all, I change. Work on my next plan, my backup plan. Find trusted coaches and mentors. And guys, forgive yourself when you make mistakes, okay? Because sometimes it actually gets into your self-esteem and your own way of looking at the world, and your confidence is what people buy into. So if you don't feel confident about yourself, don't expect people to actually list with you or sell with you. Because there's a lot of people out there who are confident. Some of them have what we call blind confidence. Those are the most dangerous ones. The ones who don't know what they're doing, and they're actually all confident about taking their clients to the cliff so they can actually fall off the rocks kind of thing. Yeah, you don't need to be that person, but you need to be a person that actually was well planned and prepared, and not taking your clients to the cliff. Okay? So, yeah, definitely forgive yourself for the mistakes, because you're going to have mistakes. It's natural. It's inevitable that you're going to have mistakes in this business. And I've had my share of mistakes. So the last part I'm going to actually talk to you guys, or second to the last part. Yeah, last part I'm going to talk to you about is learn the 4 Ds to success. Desire, determination, dedication, which is your habit. Consistent, dedicated to the things that you need to do, and creating that habit. And discipline. Stay consistent. Some things will work, some things won't. That's where the discipline comes in from, that you're actually not only looking at it from the good times, but also for the worser times, things that are not working out. And you just got to stay consistent. But if you want to do one thing and you want to actually kind of do it great in this business, do the 2 hours a day of prospecting, because that's something that most people don't do enough. And it's kind of sad, because you get into this business to what? To waste your time? Spend your money? I don't know. I don't like it. I don't want to waste your time or money, I think we have better use of our time and money. We have family, we have friends, we have kids. At least I have kids. I want to spend my time with my kids if I'm not going to do business in this field. So, according to Jim Rohn, so his name is Jim Rohn. Actually, I was actually reading up on him. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. So, when you get to your goals, it's because you are disciplined enough to be consistent and you created a habit to make sure you get there. And then Warren Buffett actually says, chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. It's so true. But habits, no matter how heavy it is, it can be broken. That's my firm belief on it. I mean, I've gone through hell and back. And I had good habits and I've had bad habits, and then I picked up bad habits and then I'm actually shifting it to good habits. Point is, you determine where you go based on your habits that you're doing, the things that you've decided that you want to do. Yeah. Either you have your life plan intentional, or life will plan it for you unintentional. So make the decision of changing your habit and be disciplined enough to stay consistent. That's my quote. I didn't read that anywhere. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you have any questions, yeah. Hopefully you walk away. Remember one thing, when you go to these seminars, right? If you walk away with one thing that can improve your business, sometimes that's one of the best things that you get out of. See, it's not the quantity, it's the quality and the application of that quality of what you've learned. And every seminar to me that I get a chance to show up to gives me an opportunity to pick up one or two things that I can apply. Because some of them are redundant. Some of them you already know, right? But if you're new in this business and you really want to succeed, you have to have the habit of consistently trying to work on things that create revenue. Because if you don't, you should be doing something else. Okay? All right, thank you so much. I don't know who's cutting this off, but